Hey everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to build a realistic house in Bloxburg. Also, I have some new UGC items up on Roblox. I have some items for Christmas as well. Feel free to check them out with the link on the screen or in the comments. Anyway, on to the video. First of all, you want to make the layout realistic, of course. To do this, try and keep the walls a good size, like 3 to 6 squares. Realistic houses also tend to have slightly bigger rooms, so try to make the open rooms like 5 by 5 or 6 by 6 if you can. This makes sure your house is a realistic size and that you'll also have room to actually move around in it. Most people already know this, but it is very important. Second of all, make some custom windows. Most realistic houses have custom windows. You don't really need them for modern houses, but if you're doing a suburban house, they really make a huge difference. To make custom windows, I like to just resize this clear window. Then I add structurals and make little lines in the window like this. I usually use Transform Plus because I'm really bad at placing the structurals. I also recommend adding structurals around the windows to give them some more depth as well. Custom windows just look so much more creative and realistic than the ones in the game, so I would highly recommend using them. On the screen, I'm going to show some custom window ideas you can use in your build. You can make so many custom window designs, and it really makes your house just look so much better. Third, make some custom pathways. You can make a straight pathway for realistic houses, but custom ones just look more natural and add some extra detail to the exterior. You can place fences to outline a natural path and then place a floor inside the fences, or you can do what I'm doing and use basic shapes to make a path with more detail and curves. If your path has any sharp edges, you can always cover it up with gardening, which is so convenient. If you haven't done custom pathways yet, then definitely give them a try. The next tip is to get some inspiration. If you're new to realistic building or struggling with ideas, recreating a real house is way easier than making one by yourself. I love going to Pinterest for ideas and recreating them the best I can in Bloxburg. You can add or change the house if you want to, or you could just recreate it as exactly as possible. If you want to build your own house, you can still get inspiration from Pinterest. You can also get inspiration from other Bloxburg builds on YouTube or houses you see in game. This helps so much with ideas and makes building way easier. The next tip is to use a variety of realistic textures. Using textures is so important for realistic builds. Never overuse a plastic texture. Some textures that look super realistic are concrete, wood planks, wood, sand, wood stripes, and any brick texture. I'd recommend using wood planks instead of normal wood because it just has so much more detail. Just make sure that whatever you do, you use a variety of textures on the exterior and interior. Using plastic for the interior walls and for pillars and stuff is okay, and it still usually looks really good as long as it's in moderation. The next tip is for the color scheme. Having a color scheme is important in any type of build, especially realistic builds. Realistic builds tend to have less color than other styles, but they don't have to be monochromatic. Some of my favorite colors for realistic builds are white, light stone gray. Oh my gosh, I love light stone gray. I don't know what it is, but definitely try that color. Mid gray, linen, cloudy gray, oyster, hurricane gray, fossil, and cadet blue. If you have the color wheel, you can also use it to make custom colors. You can find color schemes on Pinterest if you are using the color wheel and recreate them in your Bloxburg house. Overall though, just make sure that you're planning out your color theme before you are actually coloring your house and make sure that the colors are consistent. The next tip is to do realistic lighting. Realistic builds usually use cloudy gray or hurricane gray for lighting, and sometimes add in a bit of flint and linen. Cloudy gray and hurricane gray look stunning with realistic builds and make a huge difference. I personally prefer cloudy gray for my lighting. I used it in one of my first realistic builds and it just looked so much better than any other color. Try to use some of the colors that I just mentioned for your lighting and just see how much of a difference it will make. The next tip is to use transparent decals. This makes your builds way more realistic. I would recommend using transparent decals for curtains, mirrors, and just some decorations. A lot of people use transparent decals for realistic plants too, but you really don't have to. In my opinion, using the in-game plants looks just as good, and sometimes realistic plants don't really look good in Bloxburg just because they look so different. It's up to you if you use realistic plants or not. I just personally don't really like them. While I love using transparent decals, I would advise against using them too much. If all your decorations are transparent decals, you won't be able to use basic things in your house. So make sure to consider that when you are building. The next tip is to use custom building hacks. They really just make your house look more custom and original. You can find building hacks to recreate from YouTube. You can also make your own building hacks. I love to make my own building hacks. I usually take ideas from Pinterest. Sometimes I will also use structurals to add detail to furniture, or I will use structurals and basic shapes to make my own furniture that Bloxburg doesn't have. On the screen, I will put some of my favorite building hacks. Feel free to use them in your own builds. If you want tutorials on how to make these, click the video in the upper right corner for more. The next tip is to use structurals and basic shapes. You can add so many realistic details with these, and they're so easy to use. I like using structural beams to add little lines on the roofs like this. Sometimes I also put them on my ceiling inside, so it just has more detail. I also like to use basic cubes to make porches, and sometimes custom stairs. There's literally so much you can do with these now, so I would definitely recommend giving them a try. The second to last tip is to just have some patience. Realistic builds take a lot more time to make, and they can be really difficult at first, especially if you usually build in another style. It really takes time to learn how to build realistically and to try out new things. Don't rush when you're building, and remember that it really takes time to make a good house. You don't have to build a super realistic house at first either. Just try to have fun with it and try using some realistic things. The last tip is to budget your builds. This isn't really a building tip, but it is so important. Realistic builds are really expensive. A tiny house costed me $100,000. So imagine how much realistic family houses or mansions will cost. It's super important to set a budget for your builds and expect them to be expensive. Make sure you work so you can get enough money to afford your house. I have a video on how I got millions of dollars super fast and easy. The video is in the upper right corner right now, so feel free to check that out if you're interested. Having a lot of money like this makes building way easier since you don't have to worry about a budget or spending too much money. Anyway, those are all the tips I have to build a realistic house in Bloxburg. Before this video ends, I'm going to show you guys a few realistic houses I made so you can see how I use these tips. First of all, here's the house I was building during this video. I think it turned out pretty well and looks super realistic, especially because I used all of the tips. Lastly, here's another realistic house I made with an exterior and an interior. This is actually a renovation of the starter home. These tips helped me so much with this build, and I think it turned out so well, especially the color theme and the lighting. Anyway, that is going to be all for this video. Hopefully you found this helpful. Feel free to comment any tips of your own down below. Feel free to subscribe for more videos. We're getting super close to 250k and it would mean a lot. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.